to our August event. You guys get to hear me twice now. The sexy voice is really counting for something. Um, so today, this is our schedule. You may see it up top. So we'll begin by me doing some announcements, and then we'll pass it on to our host, Sama, that will introduce themselves to us. We will then have a talk by Mary and a 10 minutes break, then Fateme, and we will close it. I will present the speakers a little bit later. That's why I'm going to do them really quick right so, Hi Ladies is an organization that is totally volunteer throughout the world and is created to support minorities into entering to the world of tech. We are here to, our mission is to promote, educate, and advance the diversified community through outreach, education, conferences, events like this, and social gatherings. Pilot is also aims to provide a friendly support network for joining minorities and to bridge Python world. So we highly encourage everybody to participate and come and be part of the community. Here is a little bit of us around the world, and this is out now, so you can see how cool we are. Um, Hi, Ladies Berlin. We were founded in 2015, and we have around almost 3,000 members now, and four chapters around Germany. And it's constantly in a position of growing. So as soon as somebody else is in somewhere and they want to start their own community, you're more than welcome to. And we give them all support, and that's why we're always trying to grow. Our conduct. This is something that we take very seriously because, as we said before, this is supposed to be a safe space for all community. We believe and acknowledge that it's for all, and that at the same time, our event aim primarily at empowering gender minorities in the tech community. By attending one of our events, online or in presential or real life, you also agree to your code of conduct. So we just ask you to please be respectful, keep the community harassment free, and to make sure that if something happens to you, please let me or Jessica or somebody in the community know. We will give you all the support that we can to make sure that in the future nothing like that happens again. So we really want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. Okay, we pictures. We love pictures. We will post on our social media. If you do not want your picture taken, please let us know afterwards, and then we'll put a bubble of an emoji in your face. But we will make sure that you don't get put if you don't feel comfortable with. But we do it that so we can get that good exposure to our community, and of course, makes more people aware of what we do. Okay, what's coming up? We have some events coming up that we think you guys may be interested. You can finally find all of this at the Meetup app and website. Heidera Berlin is having an event on August 14th. We are gonna have, oh, sorry, Water FinTech is doing a hackathon on the 26th to the 30th, if it's of any interest to you. And Python User Group is having an event on the 12th of September. I'm gonna announce our event coming up at the end, so you guys get very excited. um, our next meeting, no, it's not at the end, right here. And I forgot I created the presentation a little earlier today. We have a book club going on the 29th of August. We're going to be talking about humanizing a data strategy, and we're going to be having a giveaway of one of the books that we're going to be talking about, this book that we're going to be talking about on book club. So if you enjoy book club, enjoy Python or anything like that, come and join us. It's going to be fun. And we're going to have another event coming up on September the 17th. Yes, September the 17th. And you guys are more than welcome to come and participate. We're going to have more information about the event as we get a little bit closer to that page. I know, I always talk about QR codes. If you guys have been to events before and they disappeared. So But either way, you can come to our website, to the website, and get your own Hi Ladies avatar, and it's personalized to you, and it's really cute. I think it's awesome. So if you want to, please feel free to get your own personalized one. Um, what we provide in our community here at Pilates Berlin is regular monthly meetups and talks or workshops. We do full days workshops sometimes for people that are studying with Python or people that want to start helping with open source. We set up events to people that want to start coding, and we try to connect people to companies. And events like this, when we have a host, we open space for them to show what openings they have in there that they would like people from our community to sign up. And basically, anything that we can dream and make it happen, we'll try to do so our community get to enjoy. We even have game nights with board games and that are coding related. It's really cool. We try. Um, if you want to participate and be active, you may join our Slack channel. We have various channels for different things, for looking for jobs or for the events or for planning or whatever you want, or other thing that our community is welcome to. So we'll share there. We are always wanting speakers, and now you have a QR code. If you want, you can scan the QR code and you can sign up to be a speaker for whatever team you would like to share with the community. We are always welcoming new people if you are new to speaking or if you're really good at speaking and you just like to share your thoughts and what you know. Everybody is welcome to share, and I love to have new people sharing. So please sign up. And we also have one for places that want to host us. It's a little bit smaller, but it's there. So if your company would be interested in signing up to host our events, we would enjoy that too. And some some talks are we have some lightning talks that are for no coding superpowers too. So if you feel like your codings, you don't want to share about your coding skills, but you have some other skills that you would like to share with us, also open. Some things are really important, like CV preparation and constructive feedback, and all of those things are really important also for the workforce, and they are more than welcome to be shared with us too. Haha. If you want to be an amazing person like me and be here on the front and help organize events, everybody is welcome to come and help organizing our community. You can give talks or workshops, help organizing meetups, or even coach in one of our workshops, or just help the organizing team to whatever, so posting social media or things like that. Everybody is welcome to come and participate. We do have, I didn't put it up, but we do have events, a meeting the first Monday of every month where we get together and talk about what's coming up. So everybody's welcome to participate in these meetings, and we make sure that they are open and come and participate if you want to participate in organizing. Okay, now we're gonna pass the time to SumUp to come and present their companies to us. Please give it back to you guys. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for the hand over. And yeah, welcome to Sum Up. Now, I'm curious also, slides are, sorry, to see. Thank you. Sustainability, and I'm super excited to one our vision, right? Okay. Our vision is a world where everybody can build a thriving. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot there's a camera. Hi, apologies, everybody. I'm very inclusive, but I'm usually speaking in front of people. So, what is our vision? A world where everybody can build a thriving business. And 12 years ago, our founders really focused on the long tail. So, big banks and so on always focused on the big merchants with a lot of cash. Daniel and Mark really said, no, we want to focus on the smallest merchants who can't afford to build, or to pay for a big system or so. So that's why the whole mission and our vision was. And our mission is really to empower small merchants across our world. And super exciting to say, we already have over 4 million businesses that we support with our systems, our products and services in over 34 countries. And who has seen one of those products already? Okay, yeah, okay, almost everybody. That's great. But did you know that also we offer various things like an online store, invoice payments, and we have the sum up card, which I personally like very much, and the Post Pro and Post Lite product. So basically, in the end, we grew from this simple card reader, which is super great and very also chic, I think, to really run the business. So that's also something that we want to enable, right? For merchants to be able to run the business through getting paid, manage the money, sell their products, and also engage with their customers. So we have a lot of things a lot of exciting things ahead. And we wanted to become the first global card acceptance payments brand. We did that. So this is a big milestone that we achieved. And there are many more that are now to come, and we're super excited for our journey there. Now, just a quick intro to Summer, which you already knew. I think maybe also again. Um, Now, I mean, obviously, something is very close to our heart. Sada and I are also Team Diversity Inclusion. I would like to give you a quick update on what we're doing, why we are doing it. And obviously, as you all will know, right, we truly believe that with diversity inclusion and reducing our biases and barriers, we will have access to the best talents. And we all know bias, unconscious, with unconscious or not. Anyways, we're all biased. We prefer people that are similar to us, have our own networks. So we really want to reduce or remove the barriers and tap into different pools of talents to have access to the best talents that we can find for our organization. Because we truly believe that only if we're diverse can we also come up with best products, services, best innovations, and understand our merchants' needs in the way that we need to in order also to be successful in the long run. And we also want to give back to local communities. Now, our global presence, we are over 3,000 summer pass, almost 100 nationalities and 22 offices across all the globe and 4 continents. And this, having said that, of course, when we look at gender representation, we had, I can also sometimes say 64% representation, to choose it a little bit. So 44% female representation, 21% in executive steps. So we need to increase that. We have a clear ambitions there. And we have an 18% LGBTQ plus representation, which we are super happy about, including 1 to 2% transgender, non-binary. And we have about, I don't know, handful disabilities, right? So I'm looking at Satan, he knows the data inside out. And of course, ethnicity is a big topic for us. Obviously, there are some things we can measure, some things we can't measure, but for us, it's really important to measure it. Once a year, we also run a global D&I survey where people voluntarily disclose all the very sensitive topics, but they also understand we need to understand, know that in order to see where are we biased, where not, where do we need to improve our initiatives more. Now, what we do in terms of diversity inclusion at SumUp, we, of course, what I said before, measure and analyze. So we really take a lot of energy there also to understand our data around that. We train, upskill our people. So we run inclusive leadership workshops, but we also run various webinars on domestic violence and abuse, neurodiversity, racism, LGBTQ plus, gender differences, and some other topics, age diversity, of course, as well. We developed, so this year we launched our first female development program, which we are super happy about. And we're going to have a second cohort this year because we collected so much to really strengthen the women, empower them, and create a strong network. And of course, we also engage in support. We work across different networks, including our women's circle in our market. And also, what we do is we offer mental health support. So our market, some of us have access to therapy support in case they need it. Why do we do that? Because one, we believe it's the right thing to do. Second, it's still so stigmatized topics, and we will struggle all in our lives at some point. So we want to speak about the unspoken and support where we can. But of course, also we support or empower our developers through processes, policies, and representational engagement internally and externally. Having said that, let's quickly take a look at sustainability because it's also a close topic at our heart. So we have pledged to donate 1% of our net revenue generated from solar devices, the one chick solar device you have seen, and to donate to planet and people. And we have three categories that we do that in. Environment, for example, we have now, and this year, end of this year, we have removed, I mean, the organization will have done it, we just paid for it, 200,000 kilograms of plastic from the most polluted river in the world. And we have then protected 200,000 square meters of rainforest in Peru and supported over 2,000 families in Latin America with cookstoves, so clean cooking. At the same time, with education in India, we have reached then, by then, or we are reaching 10,000 kids per year through our tech platform that we finance, and empowered also looking at entrepreneurship, 500 female entrepreneurs. And then going back to education, in Brazil especially, but also Chile, Colombia, we focus on unemployed youth, minoritized groups, and offer them tech education, Java full stack. 80% will then find employment, and we actually tracking that. So it's really hard to measure. It's a ex-McKinsey NGO who then can provide the data, and we go to communities, to the favelas there, and so on. Now, I said many things. Let's take a quick look at the video in case the music also works out. Otherwise, I've summarized it all and mentioned the other points. That's it, just in a rough, what? That's just in a nutshell. You will have seen some of the data points for different. There's a video that we did last year, so we need to update it for this year with this year's data. But that's it from my side. I mean, we have actually also a position open in case someone is interested. That's what you see there is our hiring PA, what we say, talent acquisition manager there. For that one, you can also put it on the QR code. And otherwise, yeah, super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. And let's stay in touch, right? Through LinkedIn or Instagram, I mean, or Twitter or myself, just add directly on LinkedIn. Felicitas Lichtmet is my name. Yeah, thank you guys for being here. And I think that's about it from my side, right? And oh, we do the summer clap. I don't know if you've heard about the summer clap at the end. So all, I mean, should you have no drinks or pizza in the hand, you put your hands like this and you say, some. Okay, it was a good one. We just do one more. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Hello. Okay. So now we're gonna pass for not needing to change pages to back and forth. I'm just gonna present Mary to you guys, and you're gonna be able to see her beautiful face in a minute. So Mary is a data scientist specializing in generative AI and large language models. She also provides mentoring services for emerging data scientists and maintains a blog that explains generative AI concepts to tech natives and beginners alike. Please get your hands together for Mary as she presents to us.
But here the screen will stay like this, or
No, I'm going to make it full screen.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Good, thank you. Okay, so finally, my slides are at least up. I don't know, but hi everybody. My name is Fateme.
Here's
Yeah,
your audience.
okay. I have to stay here. Sorry, I'm not used to that. I like to move around, but okay, fine. Oh, that's a new skill. I mean, okay. I don't have that, but it's fine. I think I stay here. Good. So yeah, my name is Fateme, and to just give you a short overview, our retrieval-augmented generation, I'm here for on the behalf of our DEIB team. I will also, before we start talking about retrieval-augmented generation and to go deeper into what it is and why we use it and why is it a hype now, I will give you an overview over basically our team at DHL, only about the data analytics team, what we are doing there, what kind of projects do we have, and what kind of use cases. Then I move slowly a little bit towards the generative models first, just having very broad overview. I mean, you will hear probably from Mary a bit more details on that, but here is just really like high-level overview, then moving to large language models, and then finally talking about RAG, and closing with a summary. So DHL Data and Analytics team. If I tell you about DHL, what would you think of? I mean, Deutsch. I was hoping about your packages that arrive very on time, never get lost. Yes. But data analytics team within DHL is actually a very young team. It's almost 1 year. But before that, we had different groups. We had the basically analytics team within the corporate center. And then there were some also data experts in the digital consulting. Now we have a new team altogether, kind of a new legal entity called data analytics. So we are kind of, in that sense, a young team. But of course, like the concept of analytics was within DHL for quite some time. And currently our data analytics team has actually 4 offices all across the world, 2 in Germany. We have 1 office in Berlin. It's not as big as our nice office in Bonn, because if you've ever visited Bonn, you have seen this very big post tower in Bonn, basically the biggest tower you can see in the city. And that's our office, very nice view over Rhine, with like nice also scenery over the greenness. But our office in Berlin is also nice and cozy and quiet. We have 1 office in Singapore and 1 in Miami, US, but also with just 1 data scientist there. So, I mean, the team is quite large with about 120 data experts. Now, I think for a non-tech company, we are using a lot of platforms that are nowadays very good to use, because moving from like having your data on local machine, which in very big companies and diverse companies, it's the case, unfortunately, and we all know how is the quality of data and all these things. So now we have a team that actually is bringing the platform solutions also to the company. Our team is basically made up of different cultures, different nationalities, and we work with different business units within the company. So our customers are always different business units from the company, from the DHL company. And then we also have a lot of projects with them. But talking about projects, I mean, when I applied at DHL, I mean, to me, it was a logistic company. Yeah? So what would you do as a data analyst or data scientist in a logistic company? I mean, that's interesting, yes? I never thought that I will end up working with generative AI in a logistic company. Of course, at that time was not also hype, but like even with large language models, let's say, I wouldn't imagine that. So now I ask you, what kind of projects do you think there is for in logistic company regarding data science? Just say some words, keywords.
Tracking, advertisement.
Advertisement, yes. Tracking, yes.
Predicting on time.
Predicting arrival time, very good. Optimization, perfect. automation. Yes, correct. No, all very correct answers and very good. Oh, I forgot that I wanted to introduce our DIB team. Sorry. I'm actually on behalf of the DIB team here, which we are very much proud of because, I mean, we all are coming from different cultures, yes? And the team was really trying to make us feel belonging there. So our definition of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is basically transforming through our purpose to our action. So what we do, I mean, we want to make everybody feel home. So what we do, we actually have, we celebrate multicultural events. For example, this picture you see on the right side is from the Lunar Year celebration that we had from basically colleagues giving us an intro to Lunar Year celebration from their countries. They're all coming from different countries in this picture, but they all celebrate Lunar Year. But we also host events and collaborate with NGOs that work for supporting women in tech. That's why I'm here on the behalf of our DIB team. And we have internal trainings. That I find very important because, I mean, who's better than us who knows the team to give also team internal trainings on the topics like, for example, unconscious bias, yes? Or like teaching the team how to use the pronouns because, I mean, we also know how to communicate better with our team and we know the needs better. So these are part of our initiatives. And again, this is like, let's say on the soft skill side of our company, what we really like, what we like to work there. And then going back to the projects now, what's interesting there is the diversity that you could find. Or at least I did not expect it. So someone there shouted about optimization. Yeah, that was my first guess, that if you work in a logistic company, you have to do the route optimization. The OR, or the operational research, is the main product, which is kind of true. But looking at what we actually do in the team is, for example, the forecasting actually, because in the facilities that you keep your parcels, you have you should be able to forecast how many parcels or letters will you have today, in able to plan your routing later, the volume you will need, how many cars you will need later, but also to plan your workforce. Yes, how many people you need tomorrow to work, for how many hours for you. So forecasting is actually one of the biggest projects we have. You also mentioned, I think, customer or advertisement. I mean, I see advertisement also a little bit closer to the customer. For customers, we actually also do this churn prediction to predict if the customer is likely turning away from us or not, and what actions can we take so then they will stay with the company. So this is also kind of prediction, but the customer service also is another project. We have our internal support for different functions or different business units to also do prediction on if certain customer will pay the invoice later, and again, what kind of action you can take. But again, routing is important. So, optimization is important. So how many trucks do you need to transport your goods from point A to point B? And I would say this you're familiar with. Probably you all have received an email at some point and your packet is arriving between this and a time, for example, today. So this is also something that our team has done. So the shipment, the estimated arrival, estimated time of arrival to the end customers is also something that we do, and the routing, of course. So again, just this was an intro to the projects we have within DHL. And as I mentioned, I never thought that I would be able to work on large language models. But fortunately, I had the opportunity this year to work on a project about retrieval-augmented generation. And that's what I will talk about. So it's on very high level about how you can use this framework to make basically a search bot for your company. I mean, before we go into that, we need a little bit of background. Yes, what is generative AI? And I mean, because you say retrieval-augmented generation, I mean, the generation part is coming from a generative AI model. So what is a generative AI model? How many of you has used a generative AI model? And I give an example, GPT. I mean, ChatGPT, of course. I see a lot of show of hands. So generative AI models are those AI models that can generate output for you. I mean, also to explain what is an AI model, I just found the best explanation here because I mean, the picture can tell you a lot. You know, that's an AI model. But of course, I mean, this you could call it very primitive type. So artificial intelligence has developed basically crazy like over past years with the speed that nowadays is also very high. So the early AI models, they had only a couple of hundred parameters, and it was very niche, yes, so very limited maybe number of people could work with it. I mean, it also depends how you want to define area. I could even go back to maybe 80s. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the like, let's say, history of computer science here. But as the ML models, like machine learning models, emerged, you had more number of parameters. You had thousands of parameters for your models, and a broader range of people could use it. And I think it was about maybe 6 years back, around that time, that deep learning models also emerged when you have a larger number of parameters. And again, expert community could use that. But now with the generative AI models, I mean, probably you've seen many of your friends that use ChatGPT, yes? So it doesn't mean, of course, that you know how it works, or like, I mean, you don't use it probably as a data scientist use it. Even a data scientist doesn't use it as like the experts who develop it. But it's still, this brought the AI basically to the front end, to the people who can basically, without not much knowledge, also use that, yes? Anyone that can work with a computer or a phone. And yeah, you probably have seen the performance. I know many of you have. I mean, I'm using GPT every day, and then comparing, for example, GPT 3.5 to GPT 4 model, I see like a lot of enhancement on the way they answer to you. This example here is from two different models of DALL-E from July and then March. I mean, almost a year difference, but you can see with the same prompt, you get much nicer picture in the second one. I don't know, maybe someone likes the first one more, but you definitely can change your prompt to get that one. But yeah, so this is all about like artificial intelligence models, that now the generative AI is basically a hype. But what is the backbone of a generative AI model? That's a large language model, yes? So a large language model, I mean, the way you want to define it, you could say it's like advanced artificial intelligence model that can generate data for you. I mean, primarily it was on text, but you probably have worked also with like image generation, like DALL-E models, or like audio music generations. So these are the generative models, but the large language models can basically understand the context much better, yes? So one of the capabilities is that they can understand the context of the data. They can do tasks that are very close to natural language processing, like summarizing a text, doing translation for you, or answering questions, yes? But large language models have some limitations. I was hoping that my talk would be after Mary, because she will definitely talk about that. So, I mean, wait for that. So you will hear more like in details about maybe the limitations of foundational models, and also hear large language models. So now we want to move to retrieval-augmented generation. But before that, let's say that you want to make, for your company, a chatbot on their internal knowledge, yes? Of course, you can, I mean, theoretically, you can also like train your model on your, I mean, because there are like the generative models like GPT have been trained on some data. So you can also add your data, do the fine tuning, for example. But what are the limitations there? Yeah, why people prefer to go for retrieval-augmented generations? And what limits the large language models? So the first one I already mentioned, yes. also the knowledge that they were trained on, there is a cutoff. For example, GPT-3 was also trained only on the data that was available until 2021. So maybe you have encountered that you chat with ChatGPT, you ask something, for example, if you're using 3.5, it says, oh, I don't know about this event because it took event after it took place after my data. So basically the LLM models that have been trained on a certain set, they do not have access to the new data. And there are some memory limitations, so they cannot keep track of all the details and all the accuracies that all the accuracy that you need to have, for example, for a search bot. And the hallucination is, I would say, the very important factor here, because if you want to create a RAG bot or search bot that gives you correct answer, for example, if you're asking financial figures of a company and you want to invest in that company, yes, and then the answer is like, oh, 3.5 billion, I don't know, and then it's not really like that because there might be a hallucination there, yeah, so that is really affecting your decision, because again, this is about research, this is about correct answer, and not just guessing whether that's the answer or not. So all these limitations were reasons where retrieval-augmented generation was actually, this framework is used to get data, to get your answer, your document from a database, basically. So now going into details of this model, I mean, still we stay always on high level overview. I mean, you see 3 words in this RAG, yes? So the retrieval, it's retrieving the document. The augmentation is happening with the generative models. So as simple as that. So you get your documents, you send it to your generative models to get the answers. Oh yeah, here I had this nice plot here that you ask a question, it goes to your RAG bot, and then your RAG bot is doing something on the back end that we will get into details, and then in the end you get your answer back with the document, with the source of where the answer was found. The RAG has basically 2 components, so the retrieval and the generation part, and now we want to go into details for each component. First one is the retrieval component. I mean, how we actually retrieve the documents from our database is based on vectors. So, I mean, we need a way to store our text, yes? And you do that in terms of vectors. So you embed your question, whatever the user is putting into the search bot, and you turn that into vectors or into numbers. And then you also have your data, your document, that in the same way, you also, similar way, you embed them and you turn them into vector representations. Now, what you have to do, you have to find a similar vector that is like basically closest vector to your question. So in the database, you go and search, like the engine searches for closest one based on different mathematical definitions that you can have. For example, the cosine similarity score that takes into account the distance between the vectors. I mean, here we have a very simple representation of a 2-dimensional vector, but of course, in reality, it's not a 2-dimensional vector. But let's say the word letter and the word parcel will be closer to each other in this space compared to the word cat to the letter or parcel, yes? So you always work with this vectorization and retrieve the closest document to your question. And then this document is sent out to the next step. So the retrieval part now here, you embed your question, you have your document here, do the similarity search, and then retrieve documents. How many documents you want to retrieve? Up to you, yes? You can always define this as a parameter into the models, and you receive as many documents as you retrieve as many documents as you like there. And then the next part is the generative component. The generative component takes into account the question again and the retrieved document. With a prompt, you can send them to a large language model, for example, to the GPT model, yes? And then you get your answer back. But here is actually where you can do a lot of let's say, like fine-tuning to your model, not in a sense that you can define it based on your use case. One advantage of having these databases and retrieving this document from the database is that, for example, if you need to do any filtering, you can do that easily, because when you store your data into your database, you can add your metadata to it. Yes, we had one use case that users from different part of company had overview only on limited part of the data. And one advantage in the RAG is that you can always do the filtering before, before you even do your search, yes, because you say, this is my visibility ID mapping. So for example, this person cannot even see that document. So this will not even go to the search, yes. But also, like, what you can do here is also, after you retrieve documents, if you're not happy in the way that documents are shown, so you see that the answer is not found very efficiently, you can use re-ranker models, that they allow you to re-rank retrieve documents in a different way. Yes. So you can also retrieve more, re-rank them, and only retrieve the top 3. So these are all these small things that you can do in the RAG framework. So just also to give you a little bit of, let's say, knowledge about what we use, at least in our team, for making a RAG bot or like a search bot. You always have a front end that you give it to your customer. For us, it's also very much branded here. So here, the customer gets this front end. We use both Streamlit and Chainlit. So here you can type your question, you get your answer and the sources back. So you also can display the sources with the name of the file, or even if there's a link to download the file, or if, I don't know how is the setup of this, but you can always retrieve the actual source where you found the answer. There's also a feedback tool that you can enter your feedback immediately, and then later on it will be like checked by the team if there is something really going on that's like we should fix it, then we also do that. Then for the back end, we use LangChain. We use also for embedding OpenAI models, also for query OpenAI models, different models of like GPT 3.5 Turbo, GPT-4. Now with the Omni model, we have even a use case that we use actual images to send and get the answer back. So you always see an image also later. And for databases, we use Quadrant and ChromaDB. We have also deployed version of Quadrant on the Kubernetes, when you can also, that you don't have your data on local. Yes, this is also the purpose of this. So putting everything together, what was the limitations that the large language models had? For example, hallucination, and then pure generation cannot help you when you're doing a research, when you want the actual source of the information. And also you cannot fine tune, because that would be also computationally very expensive. Then this hybrid approach that you have the retrieval and you have the generation always helps you to overcome these limitations. So this is what is being done in many companies now by the internal teams to create a lot of chatbots for the company with the internal knowledge of that company. Yes. So if you like the projects that we do at DHL, we actually have an open position, associate MLOps engineer. Don't ask me what MLOps engineer do. They do miracles. So many times we contact them, like, can you fix this? Can you do that? So please read the job advertisement. I don't know what they do. But yes, we are hiring. And also I would like to connect with you on LinkedIn. So would be happy if you scan this, and we can also stay in touch. And now, sorry? Oh, I will leave it up. It's just this one. Yes, so time for questions. Yes?
Do you use other models or embeddings that are not from OpenAI, or have you tried?
I know a colleague. Yes.
Question.
Yeah. So the question was if we have used other models than OpenAI for embedding, and not me personally. I know a colleague of mine did try that, just also for the sake of what if the AI model is down for like OpenAI model for some reasons, if we have some issues, so we can have some of the Hugging Face models. But I don't know about the performance personally.
You specifically mentioned for vector databases, you were using both Quadrant and ChromaDB, right? So was it just to check which one is better for use case, or did you actually find different use cases where one is better than the other?
Okay, so the question was, what is the difference between performance of the Quadrant and ChromaDB? I have only worked again with Quadrant because in the last project we used Quadrant. I don't know for whatever reasons we only have deployed Quadrant. So maybe MLOps engineer could answer that now. But yeah, we don't have ChromaDB deployed, but local one both can be used. And I don't know honestly about their performances. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation and how you deal with the RAG hallucination. So if the results are there, how you deal with that?
Yes. So the good thing is that you don't really have hallucinations there, because what we do, like you retrieve the document, okay, and the document could be relevant to answer the question, or it could be not relevant, yes? But when you send everything together to the large language model, yes, so like let's say you send the document that's about like where I can find my parcel, yes, and then the question is also I don't know, how is the weather today, yes, and you send these two, I mean it's retrieve, yes, you cannot control that's one of the issues with RAG, like the retrieval is not necessarily good all the time, and you send both to the AI model and you say, okay, now answer this question based on this, and you put them all again into the context that you sent. And the AI should, like, I mean, in the prompt, you strictly say, if you don't know the answer, say you don't know, and then you can filter it out. You never show it in the front end. I mean, I haven't seen the cases then you say, oh, you don't know, then you don't, I mean, it says like something, it always returns that I don't know, or like you can define it better. But this is all, again, possible that there is still hallucination, even if you give it now the context, then you say only answer based on what you have here and not on your own knowledge, for example, yes? Because it could be that it's answering on its own knowledge. But yeah, I haven't seen that, at least in this use case that I work on right now.
All right. Yeah, go on, Frank.
Thank you. So it sounds like DHL is using RAG for the chatbot. And my question is regarding chatbot, how do you evaluate it, and what kind of aspect do you evaluate it on? And have you also been trying methods to mitigate that the problems that you found?
Yes. So very good question. It was about how do you evaluate your search bot, for example. At least right now, what we do is like first the retrieve document. It's very important. Because, I mean, the business side knows where the answer is, yes? So if they give you multiple documents, multiple sources, they also give you evaluation questions. And in there, we ask them to mention what is the source that should be found. So one metric is, first of all, was the source found correctly within like top 3, for example? And then the position of the source could be one other metric. Was it the top 1 or the top 3, for example? Like the first one or third one? This is one metric. The other metric you could do is like send again the answer and the correct answer, like the ground truth that the business side has provided you, to another, like send it to another large language model and ask if they are really similar. But that is very big topic now, like evaluating chatbots and RAGbots. Actually, I would be happy to hear more about that if, like after that when we chat, if others have different experiences, they know also they use other methods to evaluate it.
Perfect segue.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, thank you so much. Before you
Sorry, Kamali, you want to say?
Yes.
Or-
Okay. So thank you so much, Fateme. That was wonderful. And please, everybody, come and talk to her afterwards. I know that she's more than willing to share. I know that before we announced that we're gonna have 10 minutes for a break, but what we're gonna do is, since we had some technical difficulties, we're gonna decrease a little bit our break. So go and get some water or get a piece of pizza really quick, max 5 minutes, so we can get started with our next talk. We would really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Okay, you're live.
So, welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the pizza, and we're gonna have a lot more afterwards, time for networking and talking. So, let's look forward to that. But for now, we are excited to have Mary, and I know that I presented her before, but she's amazing, and I'm gonna just present her again because why not? So, Mary is a data scientist specializing in generative AI and large language models. She also provides mentoring services for emerging data scientists and maintains a blog explaining generative AI concepts for tech natives and beginners alike. Please get your hands together for Mary.
All right. Hi, everyone. My presentation is company agnostic because I'm currently in between jobs. And so I used to work at Wiley in academic publishing as a data scientist there for about 5.5 years. And then in 3 weeks, I'll be starting as a machine learning engineer at Weaviate, which is, I believe, a Dutch company that they offer open source and manage vector databases. And so this is all my own personal branding. So foundation models. First, I'm going to go over terminology. Actually, that's kind of why I created this talk in the first place, is because in AI and machine learning, a lot of these terms and names are reused, used inaccurately, used differently by some people. And so actually, yeah.
It's echoing. Could you just say something?
Should I keep going?
Could you just say a few things, just because I can hear
Hi.
an echo?
Anything? Testing.
Bear with me, sorry.
Don't want to say anything, but it seems personal.
Yeah. Being targeted.
Yeah. By Streamlit. Or whatever.
I'm not sure where it comes from, to be honest. I suspect everything else is not.
Is your laptop muted?
Let me just check on the.
Or that one, maybe?
It's also not in the full, but let's make sure it's in. Yeah, it's. Oh, no. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I can still hear an echo. Sorry. Something with my setup. Which is fine.
Okay, so keep
I'm
going.
very sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
no problem. Okay, so the reason I wanted to dive into this issue was because I think my boss asked me what is a foundation model, and I just didn't know. And then he asked what makes it different from like a regular model or an LLM, and I still didn't know. So I did a real deep dive into it. And the first thing we need to go over is terminology, because like I said, a lot of these terms are used interchangeably, they're overlapping, they're used accurately by some people, inaccurately by others. Then we'll go over a really specific, my specific definition for what a foundation model is. That will go in really easily to the capabilities of foundation models, and that's kind of how they're defined anyways. And then we'll go over 2 examples of foundation models, generative foundation models and masked foundation models. So the first one is AI, and essentially what AI is it's training a piece of technology to perform something that a human can perform. That's the easiest way of defining it and the broadest way. Machine learning is a branch of artificial intelligence. This is more specific, and machine learning is all about models. So this is training algorithms to learn from data and to make decisions or predictions without being specifically guided by a human or a specific logic. So to arrive at these conclusions in a probabilistic manner. And then the neural network is the type of model that encompasses foundation models. And a neural network is really, really broad. But in this sense, it can be used for many things. But what you should know about it here is that it's basically a machine learning model that's inspired by how the human brain works. And the key to a neural network is that there's no feature engineering for it. So it's learning a lot more on its own without even feature engineering from like a data scientist or a data analyst. And so what is a foundation model? A foundation model is a very, very, very large neural network, and it's enabled by a concept called transfer learning. It's trained on huge, large, unlabeled raw data sets, usually with supercomputers with really, really advanced and expensive architecture. And they can be used to accomplish a very broad range of tasks rather than specific tasks. And so, like I said before, it's a very, very, very large neural network with lots and lots and lots of parameters, very complicated architecture. It's enabled by transfer learning, which is a machine learning concept that I won't go into too far, but basically it allows models to learn from each other. And a lot of these foundation models are actually inheriting from other previous foundation models and transferring that knowledge forward. And a super important piece, like I said, is the large unlabeled data set, which I'll explain in a little bit. And then again, they are meant for a broad range of tasks, not specific tasks. So the characteristics of foundation models are really similar to the definition, but there are a couple key similarities that set them apart from what you would just say like a regular machine learning model or a fine-tuned model. And the first one is that they're huge. These models are so big, most of them can't be downloaded on just like a normal consumer laptop. They're really, really expensive to train. They require really complicated architecture, lots of electricity, lots of compute power, like a team of really, really smart engineers. They're trained on these big unlabeled data sets. So things like all of Wikipedia in a data set form. They're very good at general tasks, like things like text summarization, writing emails, sentiment classification. And then they can also be fine-tuned for specific tasks. And so essentially, if you look at all of these characteristics here, or at least the first 4 of them, the overarching theme here is that a foundation model will not be trained by any of us. They're super complex, very expensive. Oh my God.
This is what you call speaker training.
Yeah.
If you can get through this,
Yeah.
I think you're ready for the main stage. So any conference organizers looking for an amazing speaker.
There we go. So anyways, none of us are training foundation models. Only huge companies with lots of funding, big budgets, and like the best engineers in the world are training actual foundation models. So foundation models are huge, and model size is determined by the number of parameters. And parameters also means a lot of different things when it comes to machine learning and stuff like this. I'm not going to go into it, but just know that that is how they're measured. More parameters generally means better performance, but this is not always true. It tends to be true, but the actual model architecture is starting to become more important as these companies come out with more and more competitive foundation models. Bigger isn't always better, and that's especially true in production settings. Like I said, these models are so big that you can't load them on just normal consumer hardware, like a phone or a general laptop. And so that means that you usually have to use an API hosted by one of these companies, which is going to cost money. And then this is just a little bit of a visualization in billions of parameters of some of the more recent, well, GPT-2 was like one of the first generative foundation models that came out in 2017 or 2018. And then the rest you might know, but you can see that over time, the number of parameters is increasing pretty much exponentially. And that's a huge characteristic that defines a foundation model. These models are also really expensive to train. And like I mentioned before, it's all about compute. And so that means that these models need loads and loads of GPUs, graphics processing units, I believe it stands for, and RAM, memory. I think GPT-3 was trained on an estimated 25,000 GPUs, but I'm not sure. They tend not to reveal that kind of stuff, these companies. But in order to scale like that, you need a custom designed infrastructure, which is really expensive. And these models they can take weeks to train. They for sure take days. I believe Llama 3 took 21 straight days to train. So that's like 24 hours a day, probably tens of thousands of GPUs running. And that leads us to actually a really important point is that this high energy consumption to train these models, it costs a lot financially, but it also costs a lot in terms of environmental impact. And people are now starting to question whether it makes sense to keep churning out these huge models when we know exactly how much it's costing in terms of environmental impact. I think GPT-2 or GPT-3, it was trained, it consumed 500 cubic tons of carbon dioxide, which is equal to 500 round trip flights from Boston to London. So and that was years ago. So this is a problem that's also, it's like an exponentially increasing and important problem. Another characteristic is that these models are trained on massive data sets. And so basically the models learn these linguistic relationships from unlabeled data. And by unlabeled data, I just mean like you're feeding it emails, you're feeding it, unfortunately, some people are feeding it Reddit. You're feeding it Wikipedia, all of Shakespeare's works, everything in the public domain. And the way that these models work is essentially they take several passes over the data set and either they learn to predict the next word in the data set, and those predictions get better and better the more passes that and the more mistakes they make in the data set, or they learn to essentially fill in the blank for data in the data set, which I'll talk a little bit about towards the end. And so the thing about unlabeled data is that it's really cheap and it's pretty easy to curate. However, one interesting problem is that we might be running out of it within the next couple of years. And so the days of just throwing more and more data and increasing the number of parameters for foundation models and expecting better results might be coming to an end. We'll see. And like I said, these data sets are huge. One of them is called the pile. This is one that unfortunately contains all of Reddit, so it's actually pretty toxic, and that's 825 gigabytes. Common Crawl, this is like the whole internet, and this is updated regularly. This is 20 petabytes and counting. Also, probably a lot of toxic stuff in there. But that leads to the next point, which is that all foundation models are biased because they learn these biases from data sets that are written and provided by biased humans. And I'll touch on that point a little bit later. So foundation models, they excel really well on general tasks. And this is because they kind of acquire what's called general knowledge. And that's through transfer learning, large data sets, a large number of parameters. Because of this, they're able to know kind of general facts, concepts, language patterns, ways of speaking, stuff like that. And so an example of a general knowledge prompt would be like if you're asking ChatGPT, like describe DNA for me, like what is it? And it would do pretty well at that. A more specific prompt would be something like this. And as the other speaker mentioned, like this information probably wasn't.
Sorry, I'm not quite sure.
Great. Yeah, so so here we have an example of asking a model. ChatGPT is not actually a foundation model, but I'll go over that later as well. But basically, a foundation model isn't going to be able to give you a very, very specific answer to a prompt like something on the right, because this is very, very specific knowledge, and this probably wasn't included in the training data set, or maybe it wasn't. And so when I talk about general tasks, we can divide foundation models up into large language models, which is mostly what I'm talking about. So those are text-based. And these types of tasks include language translation, text summarization, text style transfer. So that's just something like, hey, take this email and convert it to like Shakespearean English, something like that. Sentiment analysis, it's also pretty good at. So given, is the sentiment of this text positive or is it negative? Vision models. General tasks include image classification. So like, is it a cat? Is it a dog? Object detection. Image segmentation. That's the technology that you use if you use stickers in WhatsApp or iMessage. When you tap on something and it automatically cuts out the main object. And then facial recognition. So that leads into the next point, which is that foundation models are and can be fine-tuned for specific tasks. So this is a little bit different than RAG. RAG isn't fine-tuning anything. RAG is using an LLM and hooking it up to an external knowledge base. But essentially, fine-tuning involves adding, retraining the model on the external data set rather than just retrieving bits and pieces of it. So really baking the external data into the model itself. And the reason that foundation models are fine-tuned is because general knowledge usually isn't enough. Sometimes it's enough, and you might find like ChatGPT has very good general knowledge, but when it can help you write emails, it can help you create a PowerPoint deck, it can summarize text for you. But when you want to use LLMs and these huge models like in production settings to really drive business value, usually that sort of general knowledge isn't enough, and that was demonstrated by the RAG talk earlier. And one of those reasons is because these training data sets are large, but they're also limited. They don't include everything, and they're for sure not going to include like sensitive internal company data or things like that. And essentially fine-tuning on this kind of task-specific data, it really, really increases the performance of models. And so you're kind of, what you're doing is you're adding this this data, and then you're telling the model, okay, kind of narrow the scope of what you're doing and focus on answering these questions really, really well. And so, you have your foundation model, and then during the fine-tune process, you're adding in this task-specific data. One example of this was I fine-tuned a model to predict whether an academic article title was related to any of the sustainable development goals. And so what I did was I selected my kind of foundation model, and then I labeled about 1,000 examples on my own. I fed those in, I fine-tuned the model, and then what I got out was something that was really, really good at classifying on those 16 or 17 different categories. And so now that we've talked about what foundation models are and what they can do, I'll give you a couple examples. And the first one is the most obvious one, and that's the GPT models. And these models are generative. And so that means that what they're doing is when they're given a prompt, they're generating novel text. And it's like when you're looking at ChatGPT and it's literally typing the words in front of you. That's what a generative model is. So OpenAI came out with one of the first generative foundation models, and that was GPT-2. And that one was very small compared to today's standards, pretty bad. But at the time, it was revolutionary. Then they came out with GPT-3. And then actually something that's interesting is GPT 3.5 is the foundation model behind the original ChatGPT. So ChatGPT itself is not actually a foundation model. It's a fine-tuned model based on initially based on GPT 3.5. And so how they fine-tuned that was they basically trained the model to respond like in a dialogue like setting. And the way that these models are trained, and this is a huge oversimplification, but they're trained to just predict the next word in a sequence given the entire sequence behind that word. So it's very contextual. An example of this would be Berlin is the capital of, and to train a generative model, it would be going through passes multiple times until it gets the answer Germany, and then the model kind of gives it a reward, sends that information back, and then it does another pass. And so generative models, they're good at creative tasks. So you can get these models to write some pretty wild stories if you really want to, but they're also really good at things like really formulaic tasks. So things like, hey, extract the hypothesis out of these 5 different abstracts or something like that. They tend to be closed source. As I said before, these models are huge. They're really expensive to train. And so maybe not because of that, but also because of some other factors like maybe greed and profits. A lot of these models tend to be closed source that are generative, meaning that they don't publish the weights online. You can't see the internal architecture of the model, which can also be kind of a problem, because if the whole world is using, one model and the whole world doesn't really know how it's getting to its answer, that can be a bit problematic. And that means that you have to go through their APIs, which means that you have to pay them. And hallucination and biased output is a real problem for generative models. And it's a real liability too, especially if these models are client facing. And the reason that they hallucinate in a general sense is because they are just predicting the next word. And so if you're training a model, on Fox News data, what you're going to have, Joe Biden is a blank, is going to be a lot different than if you're training it on a CNN data set, Joe Biden is a blank. And so, what's going into these models is really, really important. And there's been a lot of work done to kind of tame these hallucinations and to address the biases in the data sets, but it's probably never going to be enough. And finally, BERT-based foundation models. These are called MLMs, masked language models, and no one really talks about them, but they're actually really, really powerful. A couple examples. BERT came out ages ago, and I don't think anybody uses it anymore. I think it's obsolete. But BERT, from that, we have Roberta, DistilBERT, even sentence transformers, and other models that through transfer learning have basically made BERT better. And how BERT-based models are trained is to fill in the blank. So they don't generate novel text at all, which makes them maybe a little less dangerous. But in this situation, what it would be doing is during the training process, one of these words here is covered up, and the model is meant to guess what that word is going to be. And when it guesses the right word, it gets a reward, and then it does another pass through the data set. And these models are really, really good at text classification. And actually, if you're doing text classification, I would highly recommend using one of these models, fine-tuning one of these models rather than using a generative model and just pouring, 100 or 200 examples into ChatGPT and saying, hey, label these for me, because it's actually not very good at doing that. And these models can also be used to embed data, like for RAG, for instance. Especially sentence transformers can be, there's really, really good flavors of that for embedding models. And then also they're good for named entity recognition, which is like identifying things like verbs, nouns, etc., the different relationships between the words, how they modify each other. And the great thing about these models is that they tend to be open source, and most of these models can be found on the Hugging Face Hub. And everybody is always fine-tuning their own versions of these models and putting them on the Hugging Face Hub as well. And so it's a really, really good resource. And I would highly recommend it instead of just going to a generative model if you need to do any of these tasks. And so I've told you what a foundation model is. It's a huge neural network. It's enabled by transfer learning, trained on massive, massive unlabeled data sets with really, really complicated computers. And they're very good at doing broad tasks. Like I said, they are super expensive. None of us are training foundation models on our own. They're big and they're expensive. And you need a ton of data to train them, like not just the whole internet, but like the whole internet and all the books in the public domain and all the song lyrics that you've ever heard, and et cetera, et cetera. They're fine-tuned. Which one was that? Oh, yes, they're good at general tasks. They're not good at specific tasks, but they can be if you fine-tune them. And with that, I thank you for your perseverance and sticking with me. The gptechblog.com is my little side project. It's actually, if you scan the QR code, that this presentation is based off of a post that I wrote for it, which is what is a foundation model. And that's like the type of content that I put on here. I try to make it as accessible and understandable as possible. You can also reach me by email and then connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my name. So thank you. Yeah, I can do some questions.
We have some questions. Go ahead.
First, might be a slightly stupid question. You mentioned that GPT-2 is the first foundation model. I kept wondering, what about GPT-1?
Could you repeat the question? So your question was, what about GPT-1? It is a foundation model, but I don't think it really mattered that much. Like it was the first one, but I don't think anybody was really talking about it. Nobody got excited about GPT until GPT-2 came out. But yeah, that's a good point, is that it did exist.
And my second question is, so you specifically talk about MLM foundation models separately, which is a special category from the foundation models, right? And I think you also list transformer as a word base. The transformer is both encoder and decoder, and BERT is only encoders. I'm wondering, like, is what separate MLM foundation model and other foundation model mainly the this part, or also the MLM one also only use encoders? Because the GPT only use decoders.
Right. So by transformer, I mostly just meant like the transformers library, because GPT stands for the T in it stands for transformer. So it uses that architecture. But when I put transformers, I mostly just meant like the library and like the models, yeah, for Hugging Face.
So it's mostly the best part that's separates.
Yes, but even with that, I had to search really hard for the distinction between it. Yeah.
Also find it really hard.
Yeah, yeah, to do a lot of Googling.
Maybe just a clarification of what you were saying, right? So you talked about the classification task of sustainable development, right?
Mhm.
So ultimately, I think that's what you were measuring, and that's why I think you're measuring them on that, right? Ultimately, you use the MLM for that classification task, not the GPT-2 or any of the other variants, right?
Yeah, and I used SetFit, which is like a few shot version of sentence transformers. So Actually, if you need to do anything for classification and you have like very, very, very few examples, like less than 100, I would check out the set fit model. Yeah.
What are the risks of overfitting? For example, you mentioned that you did a classification task,
Mhm.
and then did you like encounter this overfitting issue also there?
Yeah, so the risks of overfitting and with classification tasks. Yeah, I found that, I don't know, it's for that kind of stuff, it's difficult because it especially depends on if it's like multi-class and multi-label, how many labels are in the data set, and if the data set itself is balanced. And then the risks of overfitting that I've experienced is mostly it's just performing well on like the test set, but then when I'm showing it unseen data that wasn't part of the training set or the test set, that it's just not, it's the quality of the classifications just aren't as good. But yeah, it's a risk, and it's yeah. Great.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was super, Mary, and I apologize for we definitely made you work extra harder on this hot evening.
Yes. So thank you, Mary. Thank you, Fatema. Thank you all for coming, participating and making questions. We will be closing right now this event, and you guys are welcome to stay. When it's around 9:20, I will start telling you guys very politely and very loudly to start leaving the event. But until there, please stay and network and eat and enjoy each other's company. We will we'll try to bring it up afterwards. If you have any desire to speak in future events, please feel free to sign up and make sure to talk to us, and we'll be more than happy to support you on that. And
Speaking opportunities, Pi Ladies Conference, which is a global online conference run by Pi Ladies, will be opening their call for speakers on the 15th, which is 2 days. So I forgot to add the slide for this to our openings, but if you're interested, it's a really great way to also get more exposure, have more speaking practice if you would like it. Hopefully less technical issues than we had today. I can't promise, but yeah, exactly. What's going to happen? And I definitely suggest signing up. So if you go to their website, they'll be posting information on how to do that. And yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much for coming.